Holy Family Sunday. A question then. Does Christmas bring out the best in your family or the worst? Another question. Does Christmas bring out the best or the worst in you and in me? Maybe it's the light of that star over Bethlehem that discloses both the best and the worst in our holiday households and in ourselves. Christmas certainly tends to draw families together, folks traveling home to and from distant places, reuniting with loved ones they've been missing. But Christmas can also highlight the problems in families. The estrangements, the grudges, the unsettled arguments, the old hurts that keep us from truly being together in one heart. But Christmas also has a way of opening our hearts up, opening our wallets up too, to the poor, the needy, the homeless, the hungry. But Christmas also highlights the cultural divide that keeps the poor poor and the rest of us not poor for the balance of the year. Christmas light shines brightly on the world's divisions too, especially on the scourge of terrorism and war. What does it mean to celebrate the birth of the Prince of Peace while we wage war in so many places, and more often than not, on the doorsteps of the very poorest in our global family? And how will we welcome the Prince of Peace into the world if we refuse to forgive and reconcile and welcome those even in our families? So the Holy Family Feast comes at a good time of the year, time to pray for families. And let's not forget how many kinds of families we are all part of. How many kinds of families make up the global family. There are our families of origin, our nuclear families, our extended families, our blended families, his family, her family, our biracial families, small families, big families, medium-sized families, expectant families, couples hoping for a family, our nation's family, the human family, families living through war, immigrant families, refugee families, migrant families, families with two parents, families with one parent, families with LGBTQ parents, families raised by grandparents, families living with illness, troubled families, happy families, grieving families, broken families, families divided by politics, struggling families, poor families, families who have too much, homeless families, divorced families, separated families, adoptive families, foster families, the church family, our work family, families of faith, interfaith families, families of no faith, close families, families separated by long distances, the family that lives next door, down the street, and last, but not the least, and really the first, God's family. Our entire human experience is saturated with family relationships. Even if we run away from our own family, there's no denying how formative the family experience is, or even the lack of it, in shaping who you and I are. Today's first two readings come from ancient texts, from a culture that in many ways is foreign to our contemporary experience. But if you take a fillet knife and kind of cut away the cultural anomalies, you'll find in that reading from the book of Sirach a plan for family life that's built on honor, respect, prayer, reverence for others, care, kindness, simple consideration of the people you live with. How much of this is present and how much of this is lacking in the many experiences of family that you and I have today? And in today's second scripture, St. Paul offers a household code, calling us to put on like a garment, to clothe ourselves in heartfelt compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, patience, forgiving those who offend us, expressing gratitude, and above all, a willingness to invite Jesus to rule our hearts. How often and how easily do just these virtues and values fall victim to busy calendars, self-interest, electronic communication, our desire to have more and more stuff and things. What values and virtues, what interests, whose interests fill the family calendar, manage the family budget, schedule the family's time together, spark the family's conversation, bond the family's intimacy? How is my family life? How is my life and yours marked by honor, respect for authority, prayer, reverence of others, care, kindness, consideration of those we live with? How are our lives, yours and mine, clothed in heartfelt compassion, humility, gentleness, patience, forgiveness of those who offend us, gratitude, and an openness to let Christ rule our hearts? Aren't these the very virtues we would love to claim as the descriptors of our family life? Well, I think each of us might well ask how these values find a home in our own individual hearts. Because if they don't find a home in our individual hearts, how can we expect to find them in our families? In all the experiences of family that make up our lives. These words of Scripture and the Eucharist we're about to celebrate and receive at the altar, at our family table here. All this is given to nourish and to nurture these values in our minds and hearts, in our families. So as we gather at the altar, pray with me that the supper we share here will feed us for living as did the Holy Family, Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, in peace with God, with one another, inviting Jesus to rule our hearts.